Okay, family of the future, we left off with George and Jane had their jobs. George made $20 an hour. Jane made $40 an hour. And we figured out that the slope happened to be for George $20 per hour. When we looked at the blue line, lo and behold, the slope was 20/20. You went over one and up 20. Over one and up 20. So George's slope was 20 bucks an hour. Jane's slope was $40 an hour. And looking at that, you can see that Jane's slope is a little bit steeper. But you know, George and Jane, they have two kids, and their kids also had jobs. And their jobs were a little bit different. They had a boy, his boy's name was Elroy. And Elroy made $30 an hour. So he made more than George, but less than Jane. But the thing about Elroy is he loved his job. He loved the guys he worked with so much that every time he went to work, he'd end up spending every day. He'd make $30 an hour, but every day he'd spend 20 bucks a day on a long lunch. Okay? So he makes 30 bucks an hour, but he spends 20 every day. So the amount of money he makes is going to be the total. So how much money would Elroy make then if he worked for 0 hours? So if Elroy decided to go to work one day and just said, I'm not working at all, I'm just going to have lunch with my buddies, how much money would he make? And he would make negative $20. He would lose $20. And so, if he worked 0 hours, he would lose $20. If he was to work for 3 hours, how much would Elroy make? Let's see. He makes 30 bucks an hour, but he spends 20 days on lunch one time, so it's 30. If he works for 3 hours, he would make $70. So let's graph Elroy. Let's add Elroy's graph with George and Jane. So at 0 hours, he would make negative $20. We'll put a point right down there. And at 3 hours, he would make $70. So we'll put a point right, I think, there. And since Elroy's purple, his line is right here, we'll add Elroy's line. So Elroy's line is a little bit different than the other people because Elroy's starts below the axis. All right, it crosses, this line crosses the y-axis at 20. George and Jane's, they cross at 0 or meet at 0. So there is Elroy's line. He makes $30 a day, or sorry, $30 an hour, but spends 20 bucks a day at lunch. Then they got a daughter. Their daughter's name is Judy. Judy makes 20 bucks an hour, but they love having Judy around so much. Judy is so popular at her office that they say, look, we're going to give you a $10 bonus every day you come in because you're so good. We're going to pay you 20 bucks an hour, but we're giving you 10 extra bucks. So Judy makes 20 hours a day or $20 an hour plus a daily bonus of 10 bucks. So once a day she gets 10 extra dollars. So if Judy were to work for 4 hours, how much would she make? We can figure this out. If Judy was to work for 4 hours, 4 hours, she would make, I think 4 times 20 is 80 plus 10 is 90. She would make $90. So at 4 hours, Judy makes $90. We'll put her little point right up there at 4 and 90. And let's give another example for Judy. Let's say Judy works for 3 hours. If Judy works for 3 hours, she makes her $20 an hour plus another $10. So she makes $70. So we'll put her graph of 3 and 70 right up about. Oops, I got 2 370s. Where did my other graph go? I lost a graph here. So back to still Judy. So she makes $4 an hour. She makes $90 an hour. And here's where I got a little confused there. I don't know why. If she works for 3 hours, she makes $70 because it's 20 hours times 3 is 60 plus the 10 is 70. But at first I thought that can't be because Elroy makes $70 after 3 hours, but their equations just happen to meet at that point. So rather than mess this up, I can put it right on top like that. But we'll make it like so. That's 370 is both for Judy and Elroy. We'll put Judy's graph up here. It starts at 10, and it goes just like that. So there's our graph now of the family of the future. They got 4 jobs. George is in blue, makes $20 an hour. He starts there at the origin. He goes up $20 an hour, the blue line. Jane makes $40 an hour. She also starts at the origin. She goes up $40 an hour. But then Elroy, a little bit different. He goes down, he spends 20 bucks a day, but makes $30 an hour. So he starts lower and goes up the purple one. And Judy makes $20 an hour plus a $10 bonus. So a couple of cool things on this graph. One, we have a couple of places, there are 3 of them, I think, where they cross. Where even though they make different amounts of money, there's a couple of places where they make the same amount each day. At some point for the hours, they make the same amount. But also look carefully. Do you see any lines that don't meet? Do any of their jobs, will they never have the same amount of money? And you're right, that would be George and Judy. Because their rate, the amount they make is both $20 an hour. George is the blue line. Judy is this little red magenta line. They are parallel because they have the same slope. So we've added slope and y-intercept to our family of the future. So leads us to what we've been talking about. Y equals mx plus b, a linear function. So what would their equations be? So we see the graphs, we know how it works, but now let's go look at the slope and the y-intercept. George makes $20 an hour. 20 per hour, that is the slope, his equation. Think it through, pause if you need to. Y equals 20x. For every hour he works, he gets $20. Jane makes $40 an hour. Her slope is 40. Her y-intercept is 0, because if she works for 0 hours, she makes $0. Same with George. So her equation is y equals 40x. Judy makes $20 an hour. Her slope is 20, but she gets a $10 just for showing up. So if Jane works for 0 hours, she makes $10. That means is her y-intercept. So her equation is 20x plus 10. And Elroy, he makes 30 bucks an hour, but he spends that 20. So if he works for 0 hours, he's ending up making negative $20. So his y-intercept is negative 20. And that is Elroy's graph right there for the amount of money he makes every day. So now we can put the slope and the y-intercept into their real life situations and to a graph and now to an equation. So that is the family of the future, and putting their jobs and their graphs right there all together for slope-intercept form. So we'll say goodbye to the family of the future, and hopefully they will come back later.